Good afternoon. It's September 24th, 2020, and this is episode 24 of Rob Explains, your daily podcast discussing and explaining cool, random, and interesting things. I'm Rob. Thanks for joining me. Today's episode is dedicated to a listener. A big thank you to Ethan B., who gave me the idea for this episode. Today we're going to be talking about Agent 355, and I'm going to guarantee you have no idea who that is. This is a topic that was actually brought to my attention, and I got to learn something new, and now you do as well. Now, you may know about the Culper Ring, which was Washington's spy ring during the American Revolutionary War. This ring has been popularized in the more recent TV series, Turn: Washington Spies. The Culper Ring was organized by George Washington as a way to spread intelligence throughout the colonies while undertaking a war for independence. The head of the ring, Samuel Culper Sr., was actually a man named Abraham Woodhull, who is featured in the show Turn. But Abraham Woodhull isn't the focus of our episode today. The focus is Agent 355. Now, who is Agent 355? Well, one of the greatest mysteries of American history. We actually don't know who Agent 355 is. The term Agent 355 was deciphered from several correspondences within the Culper Ring. 355 was deciphered as the term lady. This means that Abraham Woodhull had someone within his spy ring who he trusted who was a woman, something probably unheard of for most of the colonials those days. But despite not knowing her identity, we do know several facts about her that are very clear. She obviously worked with the American Patriots during the war, and she was a spy. She was likely recruited by Abraham Woodhull himself, as most of the spies in his network were personally recruited by him. Based on the reference to her, it's likely that she had some degree of social prominence or access to those with degrees of social prominence. It's likely she lived in New York City, as Abraham Woodhull lived in New York as well. And based on the information she provided, it's likely that she had lots of contact with both Benedict Arnold and Major John Andre. In fact, Agent 355 played a major role in revealing the fact that Benedict Arnold was a traitor and later revealing the fact that he had gone over to the Loyalists. That is an important bit of information for Washington to have, but more important might be that Agent 355 had access to Major John Andre. You see, Major Andre was not the head of all forces in New York, but he was the head of the British Secret Services in New York. Not secret services like those that protect the president, but rather all of the spies in New York. So Agent 355 had access to the head spy master for British forces in New York. Now, there are a couple possible women who may have been Agent 355. The first was a woman named Anna Strong. Anna was Abraham Woodhull's neighbor. It's actually known that Anna Strong aided the Patriots in raiding some British facilities on Long Island. She signaled to Caleb Brewster, the head of those forces, when and where to go. Now, this is known of Anna Strong, the person, but it leads many to suspect that being Abraham Woodhull's neighbor, being a woman involved in the spy ring, that she in fact was Agent 355. Now, there is another reason to strongly suspect that perhaps Anna Strong was Agent 355. A rumor came out after Benedict Arnold went over to the Loyalists that Agent 355 had been imprisoned on a British prison ship in New York Harbor called the HMS Jersey. Now, historians, including Alexander Rose, a prominent historian, disagree with this fact. They say that females were actually not kept aboard prison ships. It was unseemly for them to be mixing with the men on those ships. And the rumor goes on to say that Agent 355 gave birth to a son on that ship. But historians point out there is no records of any births on any prison ships. However, Selah Strong, a member of the Culpeper Ring, was imprisoned on a ship, the HMS Jersey, after Benedict Arnold went over to the Loyalists. And Anna Strong, his wife, was allowed to bring him food. This may have led to the rumor that Agent 355, Anna Strong, was actually imprisoned on one of those ships. Now, part of that rumor about Agent 355 giving birth on the ship was that she gave birth to a son named Robert Townsend Jr. This is because another suspect, for whom may be Agent 355, is Robert Townsend's common-law wife. There are stories that say that Robert Townsend admitted to being in love with Agent 355, and since his wife had close ties to both Major John Andre and Benjamin Talmadge, who was another loyalist, they suspect that perhaps his wife was Agent 355. Other candidates for the identity of Agent 355 include a relative of Robert Townsend's, Sarah Horton Townsend, and another woman named Elizabeth Bergen, although there is less evidence to support those cases. Finally, and maybe most disappointingly, there is a chance that Agent 355 was no specific person. As I said, 355 in the Culper Ring code actually just translated to lady, and it may be that the code Agent 355 was used anytime a woman gave pertinent information to a member of the ring. It might have indicated that a woman who was trusted by a member of the ring had given them information, or that information had come by a member of the ring through a woman. So Agent 355 may have been many women, or in fact, all of the women that I have mentioned in this episode. Now, for those of you who have checked out Turn, you'll note that Agent 355 in that show actually is identified as Abigail, a former slave who was owned by Sarah and Sela Strong. After his imprisonment, she was freed, technically, although she was forced to work in the house of John Andre. And while working in that house, she passed messages to Anna Strong, disguised as gifts to her son, who remained in Anna's house. This is likely very untrue, and I don't believe my research couldn't find any evidence that such a person actually existed. It's far more likely that if there was an Agent 355, it was Anna Strong herself, mixing with John Andre in the social circles of New York City. And if the idea of a female involved in a spy ring excites you, well, keep your eyes out in 2021 because a new movie is coming, 355, where a group of women from different spy agencies actually form an international faction named after Agent 355 from the Culper Ring. I hope you and Ethan B. have enjoyed this episode of the podcast, and if you have a suggestion for a future episode, make sure that you let me know. The easiest way is right on Anchor. You can go to anchor.fm/RobExplains/message and leave me a voicemail or send me a message, or you can find us on social media at Rob Explains and send us a message anywhere. I am always excited to hear from listeners, and I'm happy to take on any topics that you may suggest. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Rob Explains. Look for new episodes daily wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. Do you have a subject you'd like me to cover, or just looking for more Rob Explains? Find us online on all social media at Rob Explains. Got a comment, question, or query? Or did I get something wrong and you want to correct me? Shoot me an email, rob@robexplains.com, or you can leave a comment down below. I'll check those right after the show goes live. And you can send me a message, anchor.fm/RobExplains/message. And in the form of a voicemail, I can actually include it in a future episode. Once again, thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is Rob. Take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great day.